الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم सारी जन्नत में रसूल अज़ली लिखा है, सारी जन्नत में रसूल अज़ली लिखा है। डाली डाली पे अली और वली लिखा है, सब पत्तों पे हसन और कली पर ज़हरा, सुर्ख फूलों पे हुसैन बिन अली लिखा है। सारी जन्नत में रसूल अज़ली लिखा है। डाली डाली पे अली और वली लिखा है, सब पत्तों पे सब पत्तों।
In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate, all praises to Allah, the Creator of the universes and their Sustainer, the Provider of believers and disbelievers, and may His choicest blessings be on the seal of His prophets, the last of His messengers and His holy progeny, and in particular may His incessant blessings ever continue to flow on the seventh successor to the Holy Prophet, on Imam Musa al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. From tonight, inshallah, we commence our discussions to learn on and about the seventh Imam alayhi salam. But before I do so, let us complete some transitional matters that arise between the martyrdom of the sixth Imam and the Imamah of the seventh Imam alayhi salam. Firstly, the martyrdom of the sixth Imam alayhi salam. What is unanimously accepted amongst the historians of the Ummah is that he was poisoned, and the majority of them, and in particular the Shiite historians, are unanimous that he was poisoned by Mansur. On Friday night, I said Mansur called him over on 5 occasions with the sole purpose of assassinating him. We discussed 3 of them. The clock did not allow us to discuss the other 2. But on the last occasion, he tells Ibrahim in clear words, when Ibrahim sees him in the palace in very subdued, melancholy state, says, I haven't seen you in such a state. What makes you so melancholy? He says, I have killed no less than 100 children of Fatima to Zahra salamullahi alayha. We say that is a gross underestimate. But he proceeds to say, but I have not been able to see how I can eradicate as-Sadiq alayhi salam. And that was his purpose of calling him. But he didn't succeed on any of those 5 occasions. Ultimately, he sends poison to the governor of Medina of the time, Sulaiman bin Muhammad, and says, at all costs, you must get as-Sadiq alayhi salam to consume this poison. According to one set of reports, it was put in grapes, in another, in a saddle, and the Imam alayhi salam was obliged to ride on that saddle so that the poison is effused into his body. But be that as it may, the common denominator of all those reports is that he was killed through poisoning by Mansur Dawanati. However, after his martyrdom, what became clear was that he had made an express testamentary will. And this is a great acumen on the part of the Imam alayhi salam. In that will, he appointed 5 executors. We have discussed before that the appointment in a testamentary document of an executor makes him a successor. Like when we talked of Da'wat Adil Ashira, in which the Holy Prophet said of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Anta akhi wa wasiyi wa khalifati. The appointment of a wasi in a will is the appointment of a successor. But in this particular instance, it was not meant to be so in respect of all of them. The context provided who the successor was going to be. The Imam alayhi salam appointed 5 executors, the first of them being Mansur Dawanati. The very Khalif of the time was appointed his first executor. Second executor, the governor of Medina, Sulaiman bin Muhammad. You can see life was being made very difficult for Mansur now. The third executor was his son Abu Abdullah. This is why his son Abdullah. This is why the 6th Imam alayhi salam is called Abu Abdullah, because his eldest son, of course, was Ismail, and we shall discuss that in due course tonight. His second son was Abdullah, and then the third son it was who was Qadib by a different wife. Well, he was appointed the third executor. The fourth executor was the 7th Imam, Imam Qadhim salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And the 5th executor was the mother of the 7th Imam, Hamida. Well, there was good reason for this. Good reason for this. Indeed, we get this from Sheikh Saduq alayhi rahmah. He says that it is reported by Ibn Ayyub that once, as he entered the palace of Mansur, he found him in a sad state. He calls Ibn Ayyub and says, "Oh Ibn Ayyub, have you heard the sad news?" And Ibn Ayyub says, "No, I have not heard any sad news." Mansur Dawanati broke away, crying and weeping. So Ibn Ayyub says something very serious must have happened. He says, "Yes, As-Sadiq alayhi salam has passed away." What a grief for Mansur. And having said that, immediately he says, "I would like you to get in touch with the governor of Medina immediately and send me a copy of the will of As-Sadiq alayhi salam, and steps must be taken instantly for the executor of the Sadiq to be brought to me and to be executed, to be killed straight away." But you can see the strategy. All efforts to kill As-Sadiq alayhi salam. Why allow his son to prosper, to propagate, to get a good name before he is killed? It's easy to kill politically someone who is not popular than to allow him to get the popularity of the people, for the people to know what his state of knowledge was, what his degree of piety was, and then kill him. Because then the Khalif is criticized for killing a pious man. So he decided he would kill the snake in the shell, ma'adallahi ta'ala. Abu Ayyub said, "I made instant arrangements to obtain a copy of the will. And I got in touch with the governor of Medina and instantly informed Mansur, 'Oh Mansur, you are the first of the executors of the will.' And Sulaiman says, he is the second executor. A third executor is a lady. Will you execute a lady? One of his wives, the mother of Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. And then the 4th and the 5th are his sons." Mansur became dumbfounded lowered his head for a few minutes, raised his head and said, my scheme will not work, I cannot kill those executives. But you can see the fantastic move on the part of As-Sadiq alayhi salam. Just as I leave his subject, I pose that other evidence of the imama of As-Sadiq alayhi salam, the depth of his vision to see in advance that this is what is going to happen. Nothing else may have been important to him, but surely the fact that his successor, named by the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, and his progeny would be killed at first go in this manner, had to be reflected upon and had to be avoided in the most astute of manners. I mentioned last Tuesday night that the fifth Imam alayhi salam also made a documentary testament. That never became the subject of a scrutiny by the Khalif. Well, the Umayyads did not go that far. You can see how far the Abbasides would go. And there we are, the Imam alayhi salam, from his political acumen, had to prepare for that contingency and take care of it in good time. I wish to make one point now out of place, but I do so for a good reason, because I don't want to bring you back to this testament. In this testament you see 5 names. 2, of course, are the Khalif and the governor, and 1 is the mother. But only 2 brothers are named. You see the name of Abdullah and you see the name of Musa alayhi salam. You do not notice the name of Ismail in that will. I only wish you to bear this in mind, and I'll come back to this when we discuss about Ismail. However, this is the account and the importance of the will. But that was the importance insofar as the Khalif is concerned. Let us see how the mu'mineen took it. And I will not detain you because time is running after us, only to give you one instance of this. News spreads in no time. And talking of only one companion, Abu Hamza al-Thimali, the name you have heard so many times before, famous for the dua that the 4th Imam alayhi salam taught him to be recited at Sahar in the holy month of Ramadan. Indeed, and a mosque dedicated to his name. He was praying in Masjid Kufa at the 7th pillar, so famous in that Sahan of Masjid Kufa. And suddenly this person announces that he had just come from Medina. Sad news that As-Sadiq alayhi salam had been martyred. When Abu Hamza Simali listens to this, he breaks down totally. So much so, it is said, that his forehead struck against the ground. He calls this reporter and says, what news have you brought? How authentic are they? He says, well, beyond question, this is what has happened. He says, well, do we know who he has appointed as his successor? May I request you once again to mark those words. Has he appointed his successor? We will come back to that when we discuss Hazrat Ismail. And the reporter says, yes, he has appointed 5. He has appointed the Khalif and the governor. Abu Hamza Ismaili says, may Allah have mercy on him, rahimallahu anhu, that Allah should have mercy on the vision and on the wisdom of a Sadiq to have done that. Then he says the 3rd is the mother. She says that's an act of courtesy. And he says 1 is Abdullah and the 5th is Al-Qadim. And instantly he says, I know he has appointed the last, the Qadim alayhi salam, to be his successor. Companions around him turn round and say, Abu Hamza, how do you know that? He said the first 3 are explicable. Then you have the 4th and the 5th. But of the 4th we know that the 4th has a deformity. He had flat feet. And this is why he was called Al-Fath. Fatah is a person with flat feet. He says this is well known. And he cannot be an imam, Abu Hamza Shimali says. He cannot be an imam who has a deformity of any state, form or kind. Deformity in taqwa, deformity in knowledge. But even physical deformity disables disqualifies a person from being an imam, I now know who my next imam is. I pause here. I pause to ask the Muslims of today. We cannot question the Muslims of the past. I turn round and say, one intelligent companion of the sixth Imam alayhi salam, Abu Hamza Simali, on hearing that the Imam has passed away, breaks down. And yet, in that state of grief, in that state of uncontrollability of his emotions, the one question he does not miss to ask is, who is the successor? Whom has he appointed as a successor? Vital, therefore, by common sense, that every Imam appoints a successor. Didn't the Holy Prophet do so? May peace be upon him and his progeny. It is an incredible state of affairs into which the Muslims of today have delved themselves. Of course he appointed his executor. And of course, people asked him in his lifetime who his successors would be. I have discussed that hadith in 1996. I will briefly remind you at the appropriate time this evening without consuming your time because you've heard it before, but just to recall and refresh your memory. Well, Abu Hamza Ismaili says that, and that is how that matter is dealt with at that time. But one thing that I cannot miss saying is that Abu Basir says that when I heard this news, I traveled from Kufa to Medina to visit the grave of As-Sadiq alayhi salam. And what greater thawab than visiting his grave? Hence, do we not miss any chance to visit Al-Baqi and salute As-Sadiq alayhi salam. Abu Basir says he traveled, and having done that, he visited Hamida, the widow. Having visited her, he says, Hamida, my main purpose is to convey my condolences to you. But now that my master is not with me, and as you know how close Abu Basir was to the Imam alayhi salam, I will not be pleased to leave you without some gift of some teaching that you heard from him in his last days that I would have missed. And Hamida says, Abu Basir, when he was in his last hours, he turned round to me and said, Hamida, call all my kith and kin, call anybody who claims to be my relative, and let them surround my bed. And so she says, I quickly summoned everybody, concerned everybody whom I could get to be here. They all came in and surrounded As-Sadiq alayhi salam. He told them the sad news that he was about to part. And he says, as I go, I wish to make one wasiyah to you. I say, As-Sadiq, Assalamu alayka ya Mawlai tonight, because that wasiyah indeed was for us. Hence he said, anybody who claims to be a relative can come and listen to it. And that wasiyah was just this, that beware of one thing. Our shafa'ah is sure. And Allah has bestowed that ni'mah, that favor on us. But be also sure that our shafa'ah will not reach any of our adherents who regards salah, who degrades salah, or regards it as light and unimportant. So to qualify for shafa'ah, salah is the dominant factor. Let those who believe in Sadiq as an imam bear that much in mind. Bear that much in mind. And I will revert to this point at the appropriate stage. He says, our shafa'ah will not reach any of our adherents, any of our Shias, if I may put it broadly, who degrades salah or regards it as subuk, regards it as light. In other words, we can pray till sunset, so we will pray 5 minutes before sunset for Dhuhrain. And if we can pray Fajr before sunrise, 5 minutes before sunrise, the alarm clock is spatially fixed, so that 5 minutes before sunrise, the alarm goes, you rush for wudu, and after all, you just have to recite 1 rakat, right? Before sunrise, for it to be accepted, and you are through. Imam says, that sort of a salah will not entitle you to our shafa'ah at all. Glorious words. But I salute him, not only to give us that news tonight, but the state in which as-Sadiq alayhi salam then was such that poison had covered his entire body. And that is what this witness said. Witness whom Abu Hamza Simali questioned in Kufa. He said, how sure are you? He said, I witnessed it. I could only see his head, his body was covered. But I know from seeing him that he was already martyred by then. He was in a state in which poison had run all through his body. He was in total state of unfitness. His mind must have been affected too in that state, because it must have gone feeble because of the effect of a poison. I say this because when poison had got into the head of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he was being questioned, he continued answering. In the last hour or two, he turned round to his companions and he said, خَفِّفُوا سُعَالُكُمْ أَنْ مَوْلَاكُمْ. Now make lighter your questions to your master, because my state does not allow me to deal with them. And yet at that crucial hour, as-Sadiq alayhi salam is still so sharp mentally, so brilliant mentally. The one who taught us so much science, as we saw last night, so much of astronomy, so much of any kind of knowledge you can think of. One can imagine how sharp his brain would be. And at that last hour, those were the last words of our Imam for us, that we should not regard namaz, salah as anything light. And why? And how can it be otherwise? How can it be otherwise? Because the sign of acceptance of divinity of Allah is His worship. There is no recognition of Allah. Indeed, there is no La ilaha illallah unless concurrent and concomitant with it is the worship of Allah, and only that worship is accepted by Allah, which is a worship in the mode of salah as taught by the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him and his progeny. Do you remember that hadith we get from Abbas himself, that he was sitting with two other guests who had received, and there he sees the Holy Prophet come to the Kaaba, sees a young man, that was Imam Ali alayhi salam, and a lady, Bibi Khadija alayhi salam. And in those very early days, they saw him making qiyam, making ruku, and making sujood. That is the order that remained eternal for our system of worship. And Abbas says, what am I witnessing? I am witnessing something weightier than any weighty material existing on this earth. Well, that is the last word as-Sadiq alayhi salam left for us, so that whatever we do, the paramount duty is salah. Well, after him then, immediately after him, differences arose. Vital that we discuss them tonight. A group of Shias instantly broke away, and from as-Sadiq alayhi salam onwards, each Imam has had this problem. Each Imam has had this problem. But the frictions that took place after as-Sadiq in that transition, as I call it, between as-Sadiq and al-Kadhim alayhim as-salam, became too deep-rooted. Because a group that broke off immediately said they would follow Hazrat Ismail, and they became Ismailis. Ismailis again broke into various factions, and various factions existed. Till today, two of them are main. The Ismailis who have become Agha Khanis, and the Ismailis who have become Dawoodi Bohras, although the Sulaimani Bohras also exist, particularly in India. Well, what is the reality of it? And it is this, that Hazrat Ismail died in the very lifetime of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And there is little dispute on this. Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam was a beloved of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he was his eldest son. But he died in the lifetime of the Imam alayhi salam in the year 132 Hijrah. As you know, the Imam alayhi salam was born in 83 Hijrah. He was martyred in 148 Hijrah. And the dates are reach near unanimity that it was the 25th of Shawwal. However, but that was in 148, 16 years. And this is the important point. Not 16 days. If it was 16 days, there was room for argument. There was room for controversy or confusion. But 16 years prior to the martyrdom of the 6th Imam alayhi salam, Hazrat Ismail passed away. That grieved Imam Sadiq alayhi salam considerably. But naturally that would be so. His eldest son. He prepared for the funeral of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, and he himself took charge of that funeral. But what historians say, and I'm not, of course, Shaykh Sudduq alayhi rahmah has said so. The Shaykhain, both of them, Shaykh Mufid alayhi rahmah has said so. Ibn Shari Ashub has said so. Shaykh Tusi alayhi rahmah has said so. Shaykh Abbas Kummi alayhi rahmah has said so. All of our leading historians have said exactly what I am about to say. But all leading Sunnite historians have said exactly that. Tabari, the one that I quote constantly because his encyclopedic history has all been translated into English, says exactly that. That Ismail passed away in the lifetime of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in the year 132 Hijrah. That is the time when he passed away. But they all report, Tabari reports this, and the leading Sunnite sources report this, Yadabi'ul Mawadda reports this, Ibn Athir reports exactly that way, that something very strange happened. It is reported so vastly because of the strange incidents that happened on that occasion. As the coffin was being carried to Baqi, until today you can be shown the grave of Hazrat Ismail in Baqi. That grave is extant. And Ismailis, Agha Khanis have been known to be visiting Baqi and visiting that particular grave of Hazrat Ismail, buried in Baqi. Be that as it may, the important point I wanted to make is this, that as the coffin was being taken, the Imam alayhi salam would ask that the coffin be lowered. He would break down, weep, and then he would open the coffin. He would open the coffin and say, "Oh Ismail, have you really passed away? Has Allah really taken you away?" If there was a sabir person, a patient person at that time in Medina, it was him. People wondered why he has become so much without patience. Why has he become so grieved when he knows best the will of Allah? Nobody knew better the will of Allah operating than him. And yet, this is his state. He would cover the coffin, move on. Again it would be lowered. New group of people would have arrived. And he did not want any of that funeral procession not to witness this episode of his. Again he would open that coffin and say, "Is this truly Ismail? Ismail, have you really gone? Have you really left us?" And indeed, on occasions he would call people there. He would call his friends. He would call some strangers and say, "Look at his face. What do you see? Do you see Ismail is alive? Am I imagining? Is he really dead?" And everybody would say, "Yabna Rasulillah, there is no question about it. He is surely dead. The doctors have said he is dead. We, from our experience, know he is dead." He would say, "Alhamdulillah," cover the coffin, move on. And again he would lower it after a while, as he saw new people coming in, and he would ask them, "Look at my son. Do I really need to bury him, or will he come to life again?" And they would say, "Indeed not." He didn't do that again. He didn't do that in respect of any other relative who was buried. He took this precaution precipitously and repeatedly to ensure that all those people who attended that funeral were themselves sure that Ismail has passed away and is no longer in life. That is the state in which he was buried. His grave was marked. Not only that, but Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was known repeatedly even to visit the grave and show it to his kith and kin and to his friends and say, come here when you get time and recite Fatiha on Ismail. Abundant proof that Ismail passed away in them, and this is set out in leading Sunnite sources as well. But apart from that, let us consider what to do, in fairness, to deal with the matter objectively. What do the Aghanis say about this? Well, the majority of historians, in fact, all the history that I have read on this point from Agha Khani writers, truly the Ismailis writers of the past, is that yes, this did happen, all this that I just described, because it happened in too strange a way to be deniable. So yes, all this did happen, but it was a ruse. As-Sadiq alayhi salam, ma'adallahi ta'ala, did that only to deceive people and make them feel that Ismail was there. I say, isn't this too disgraceful even to mention? As-Sadiq has the authority we have discussed for 5 nights consecutively. That is the person we call As-Sadiq. He is known as truthful. Will he lie in that way? Will he debase himself to utter such a lie? Not only do I think it is disgraceful to say so, in my humble opinion, and judge me yourselves, I think it is even a sin to make such an accusation. A grave sin to make such an accusation against As-Sadiq. And why is he supposed to have said that lie? Ma'adallahi ta'ala. He was a ma'soom in every respect. Why was he supposed to do so? Oh, only so that people who were after Ismail would not be able to get him. Ismail had in fact run away to Syria and was hiding himself in Syria. I think that was too feeble an excuse. The Imam alayhi salam did not run away when no less a person than Mansur was after him. And you can see I was advisedly at pains on Friday to set out how he was being called by Mansur, how his own life was in danger. And may I ask, why was Ismail looked for? Why was his life in danger? There is no rational reason being proffered for Ismail's life at that point of time being in danger so that he should run away. There does not appear to be any reason or rhyme either for Ismail to have run away or ma'adallahi ta'ala for Imam Sadiq to behave out of character than his total and perfect truthfulness, nor was there any reason at all for the Imam alayhi salam to behave as he did behave. What is not without any doubt is that every time that coffin was lowered, all the people in the funeral procession saw a body in it. I ask tonight, if it was not Ismail, can we be told who it was? Can it seriously, or even in jest for that matter, be suggested that the holy personality of Imam Sadiq put a wrong person there, calling him Ismail, ma'adallahi ta'ala? I think those who regard Imam Sadiq as as their Imam need to revise their thoughts on that point. Because to us Shias, an Imam is only an Imam who is always relentlessly truthful in its perfection. In its perfection. No wonder that the Holy Prophet, talking of the 6th, called him a Sadiq. And I said, I call him so because he will deliberately be a Sadiq. All Imams alayhimus salam were a Sadiq, but there was reason to call him a Sadiq. And we see it today, that otherwise impinging such allegations on his truthfulness, his credulity, and his imama, as it were, leaves Muslim in a state of incredibility. This is how it was mentioned. I bring you back to the will and ask you that if Abdullah was mentioned in the will, if Ismail was alive, would he not have been mentioned? Would Mansur immediately not have queried that why Ismail is not mentioned in that will? That will was yet another testimony of the fact that Ismail had already passed away by the time Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was martyred. Well, yet, for the reasons given, they say that he had not been martyred. But there were those Ismailis who accepted that he was martyred, that he had already passed away before the sixth Imam alayhi salam was martyred. Pardon my slip. That he had already passed away before the sixth Imam alayhi salam was martyred. Well, then what? They say, well, the truth is that the eldest son has to be an Imam. There is no such rule in the Shia hierarchy that the eldest son has to be the Imam. Such a rule does not exist at all. Because many, and we will see this next year, we will see it the year after, that the eldest son was not appointed as an Imam. Indeed, even before the 12th Imam, Ajjalallahu Farajahu, that is exactly what happened, and we shall come to that stage. Well, no such rule at all. And if there was that rule, once he passes away, he can't be an Imam. Imam is a person who has to be alive and to be a leader. That is what the word Imam means, to guide. No use having an Imam who is dead and is already buried. So they said that because he's dead, his son Muhammad comes in his place. Now that is an argument which has no logic whatsoever. But what we do say, and again, I will not consume your time setting out the arguments, because we have discussed these arguments year in, year out, when we are discussing the imamah of our imams. What we do say is that no person can be an imam unless he is afdal. No such claim was being made for Ismail. I will tomorrow night, insha'Allah, set out to you abundance of evidence, as much as time can permit, to show that at the time that Imam Kadhim alayhi salam lived, the most afdal of personalities was Imam Kadhim alayhi salam. And Sunnite sources say that unquestionably. There is no suggestion that Ismail was more learned than Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, even during the lifetime of As-Sadiq alayhi salam. Indeed, in the time of Sadiq alayhi salam, Al-Kadhim was the next most learned person and most pious person that lived. And there is no Ismaili evidence in their books or ours that Ismail was in any way afdal to Imam Kadhim alayhi salam, or even for that matter to some other pious people who lived at that point in time. Nor did Imam Sadiq alayhi salam present him to the world in that way. As time permitting tonight, I hope to start on that. Failing that, tomorrow inshallah, I shall give you the evidence of how Al-Sadiq alayhi salam presented the honesty, the piety and the ilm, the knowledge of Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. So that is how we look at the person, his piety, his afdaliyah. We do not have evidence comparable to that. We, of course, rely on the word of the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him and his progeny. When asked who his successors would be, he mentioned the 12 of them, and he named all 12 of them. I ask my friends, you do not believe in your Holy Prophet? Or you do not believe that he mentioned these 12 names? These 12 names appear in Sunnite sources. In 1996, I have given you those Sunnite sources. Given the opportunity, inshallah, I shall give these authorities back to you. Because there is no Imam who has not mentioned the 12. If my Khoja brothers, if the Ismaili brothers are prepared to accept whoever they are, Khoja or non-Khojas, if my Ismaili brothers are prepared to accept that As-Sadiq alayhi salam was their Imam, then As-Sadiq alayhi salam himself, in the matter of Zayd, and I discussed this only a couple of nights ago, in the context of Zayd, talking of the political situation of the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he then said that it is the Mahdi who will come and bring justice, and even said that he will be the sixth after me. The numerals have always been given. And he mentioned of the two ghaibah, ghaibat al-sughra and ghaibat al-kubra, and explained in details as to what happened. What is sure, unquestionably, even in the books of the Sunnis, is that the Mahdi that will come will be the son of Hassan Askari, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. It is important that these brothers of ours understand that they demean the first 6 imams of their own, or at least 5 of them, if they don't believe in the 6th of them. They do not demean those imams in giving priority to Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam over Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Well, but this is how they proceeded. And they continued, the Ismailis, in that fashion until a stage was reached when they came to Al-Muntasir. Al-Muntasir was their 18th Imam. And that is when they started to break away. Al-Muntasir had 2 children, Abu Mansur Nazir. Al-Mansur Nizar. And he was the elder son of Al-Muntasir. The younger son was Al-Musta'ali. The 2 quarreled and broke away from each other. Each claimed imama. Those who followed Nizar became the Nizari Ismailis, who today are the Aga Khani Ismailis. And the Nizaris continued to have their imam, one after the other. Well, I am diffident when I say one after the other, because a number of their imams are not known. Some, we are told, were in Ghaibah, but history is not clear when that Ghaibah started, and for what reason, and when it ended, and for what reason, and who succeeded. But a number of blanks appear. But be that as it may, the present is the 49th Imam, Karim Shah. He is their 49th Imam and is the living Imam of the Nizaris, Ismailis. Well, those who followed the elder brother, Al-Musta'ali, he continued and he took over the authority in Cairo. These are Fatimid dynasty now. After the Abbasid dynasty, they belong to the Fatimid dynasty. And indeed, in an address at a luncheon that I attended by the current Aga Khan himself, he called himself the Fatimid descendant of the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him and his progeny. So this is how they identify their imams. The Barrs, on the other hand, identify themselves through Musta'ali, and they followed him. He was successful over Al-Mansur Nizar, and he of course was then killed. It's a strange story there, because what is said is that Al-Musta'ali managed to conquer over Abu Mansur Nizar, who fled from Cairo to Alexandria. And then the brother-in-law of Musta'ali, who was known as Afdal bin Badr al-Jamali, he followed Nizar in Alexandria, and there managed to arrest Nizar, his wife, and both his sons. And they were kept in custody. According to historians, all of them ultimately died in prison. However, the Ismailis, the Nizari Ismailis of today, say that the sons managed to escape from prison and got into Syria and continued living in Syria, and this is how the imamah flowed in Syria. There are unquestionably quite a few Aga Khani Ismailis in Syria even today, and there are some in Egypt even today. The Barrs, on the other hand, continued to follow Al-Musta'ali, but he died in the year 1101, and his brother-in-law Al-Afdal bin Badr al-Jamali took over the reins. He died in 1121, and by then the Fatimid dynasty came to a close. But as they were losing political authority, their 21st Imam Tayyib, went into seclusion. So he has been in seclusion all along since 1127 AD. I'm talking of the Anno-Domini period, and the spiritual administration of the Al-Musta'ali Bohras was conducted by Dais. Indeed, the current Dai is the 52nd Dai of the Al-Musta'alis. However, they are now not known as Musta'alis because again they broke off. Before I get to that break, the 24th Dai, Yusuf Najmuddin, he was the person who moved the Bohra base to India. And the Bohras you see in India have been here under their religious authority since the 24th Dai, Yusuf Najmuddin, and this is why you find this name Najmi Bohras. Indeed, their graveyards are known as Najmi Bohra graveyards. But they again split on the 27th Dai. Those who followed Dawood bin Qutb Shah came to be known as Dawoodi Bohras, and those who followed Sheikh Suleiman came to be known as Suleimani Bohras. And when I mention of the 52nd Dai, I'm talking of the Dawoodi Bohras. Our answer to them is precisely the answer we give to any Ismaili, because indeed they also believe in the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him and his progeny, and the Imams that follow, including Imam Hassan alayhi salam, because he too gave so many ahadith on Sahib al-Hujjah ajjalallahu farajahu. And indeed so did Imam Hussein alayhi salam, even on the eve of Ashura, and that the numeral of 12 was mentioned by Imam Hussein alayhi salam, even in his khutbah, the khutbah in which he extinguished the candles. In that khutbah, he actually mentioned the figure 12. I have dealt with that khutbah once in Rizvi College on Shab Ashur, for those of you who attended that particular sitting. Well, so that hadith is well known. And then each after them, 4th, 5th and 6th Imams alayhi salam have mentioned that numeral. The Holy Prophet mentioned it to Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari. He mentioned it to Salman in Khutbatul Wida, in Hajj. Indeed, Ya Nabiul Mawadda mentions the names of each one of them. This is a leading Sunnite work, Hanafi work, and written by the Chief Justice of Turkey of that time, which was exclusively a Sunnite authority. But that was how Ismailis came to be split away from us. I will of course be available to answer questions on that on the 12th eve, if any matter is left by me unclear. But that was one group of people. Another group of people that separated from us, not following Imam Kazim alayhi salam, were those who followed Hazrat Abdullah, because as I said, he was a son. We, of course, did not accept him because he was not appointed. Now that is another strong argument that we Shias rely on. We always say, whom did he appoint and why that? Only because our philosophy is, and our theology is, that a representative of Allah on earth can only be, I repeat, only be a person appointed by him. You cannot appoint my representative. If I decide to have a representative in Bombay, who will appoint that representative? Will you take it upon yourselves to say, we are going to appoint on behalf of Murtaza, who Murtaza's representative is going to be? It will be rubbish. I alone can appoint. Likewise, when Allah sends His Hujjah, the sole authority of that appointment rests exclusively within His domain and His governance. And so, the only person who can tell us who that appointee is one already appointed by him. In other words, only the first Imam appointed by him can tell us who the second Imam is going to be. And only that second can tell us who the third is going to be, a process that we call Nas. I have not seen any authority, and I'm saying this out of courtesy, I have seen no authority to say that As-Sadiq alayhi salam appointed Ismail to be his successor after him. What I have seen, and I've pointed out to you, and I've given you my authority as to where you can see it, is that he appointed Al-Kadhib alayhi salam to be after him, and I've given you the will that he appointed, and I will deal with Hazrat Abdullah despite the clock this evening so that we complete that chapter at least. But apart from that, Ismail is not mentioned in that will anywhere. Tomorrow, now the time does not permit, tomorrow we will look at express appointments made by As-Sadiq alayhi salam of Al-Kadhib alayhi salam to be his successor. Well, but there is no evidence of any appointment of Ismail or of Abdullah. We pause there, and to us, that is of the crux of the matter. However, those that did follow Hazrat Abdullah, in due course found that he was not able, were not able to follow up with him. We emphasize that the basic qualification, as I've always said, of an imam is his afdaliyah. And in his afdaliyah, the first, as of course, his ilm, and then his taqwa. Naturally, as all Shias always do, they went to Hazrat Abdullah after the martyrdom of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and asked him questions. Soon they discovered the shallowness of his knowledge. Indeed, it is said that in some of his matters of his faith, one was doubtful whether he remained on the faith of his father at all. And hence, soon they left him. And as you know, there is very little semblance of those following Hazrat Abdullah today. Well, that is how that particular group came to be finished. But all this, despite the efforts of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to save Islam, becomes a sad affair in the commonwealth of Muslims, because the main concern of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and indeed of his struggle in Karbala, was to ensure that Islam survives, and Islam survives in its pristine form. Well, I said earlier on that the sixth Imam alayhi salam said, no shafa'ah to those who do not pray, who do not respect salah. What can you say for those who have abandoned salah altogether? Who do not regard it as a tenet, who do not regard it as wajib to recite salah in the way in which the Holy Prophet recited. This is important. Sitting and reciting a dua is not salah. Salah is the salah as the Holy Prophet, may peace be upon him, recited with qiyam, ruku and sujood. Well, serious question marks arise there. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was at pains to do this. We discussed in Masaib last night how he conducted the Zohar prayers at a time when arrows were being flung on him. Two of his companions stood on his side to take the arrows so that they do not reach him, and so that salah is preserved and protected to the day of judgment. Well, that was the spirit in which those companions lived with him, a spirit in which they would each turn to him and say, Ya Aba Abdullah, we are not content to give our lives to you. You have the power. Pray to Allah that after we are martyred, we are restored to life, and we give our life again to you, and again, and that we are killed 70 times before we finally go to paradise with you, all in your cause. Bibi Zainab alayha salam was in the forefront of this struggle. Shab Ashur, it is said, she spent the whole of that night with two sons, Aoun and Muhammad, telling them all the time, oh my sons, tomorrow is a day of test. You've got to pass the exam tomorrow, because if you do not pass the exam tomorrow, what face will I show my mother Fatima Zahra if on the day of judgment she were to ask me, Zainab, you kept your sons dearer to you than my son Hussein, and you did not sacrifice them, what will I reply? She gave them inspiration by saying, you are grandsons of Ja'far al-Tayyar, Ja'far al-Tayyar is in heaven now, flying all over with wings because he lost his arms in the battle. Will you allow your uncle to be massacred tomorrow without you having first died in his cause? And those two sons promised sincerely and determinedly that, mother, you will see us in the forefront tomorrow giving our lives. But every time Aoun and Muhammad went to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he would say, oh my dear nephews, with what heart do I allow you, little children who are now coming up in life, to go and sacrifice your lives in that way? You do not need to do so. My companions are there. When the companions were gone, they again would go to the uncle and say, uncle, now allow us to go, so that we too make our sacrifices. Indeed, they turned round to him. But the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil took precedence over them. They came back to him and said, now even the sons of Aqil have gone, now let us go. Our mother is scolding us. Our mother is telling us, you are not doing enough to get permission. Allow us to go so that we also give our lives. When nothing happened, Bibi Zainab alayhi salam herself goes to Hussein and who says, Hussein, are you making these two sons more precious than the son of Fatima? He is to Fatima. Are these two your slaves? For the sake of my mother, let them go. Hussein says, Zainab, I would never have let them go, but for the way in which you are rendering me helpless. The two sons go, and indeed show the valor of Banu Hashim. They fight, and so fight that they get to the tent of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'natullah, runs away from his own headquarters, turns to his people and says, how long will you allow these two little children to massacre us like this? You cannot fight them. These are grandsons of Ali. You cannot fight them in this way. Surround them all together and go over them and attack them from all fronts, from the back, from the front, from the sides. Attack them simultaneously and attack them from all fronts. When that happens, the two brothers decide they will stay together to give courage to each other and to give support to each other. A time comes when Aoun is separated from Muhammad. The two are separated. Ultimately, both are martyred. When they are martyred, they send the last salam to their uncle. When the last salam comes, Imam Hussein alayhi salam rushes. Abbas alayhi salam rushes with him. One brings the body of Aoun, the other of Muhammad. When these bodies are brought, Imam Hussein alayhi salam turns round and says, my sister Zainab, this is what you wanted to witness. You wanted to witness the sacrifice of the two sons. Here they are. Zainab was not to be seen. Look for. Ultimately, she was found in a sajda. Zainab was thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that her sacrifice was made possible, saying, oh Allah, you accept the sacrifice of these two beloved ones. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه